I loved you then, I love you now, and I will continue loving you until I can no longer.
You took a part of me until I had nothing left.
The old me had to die so the new me could be reborn.
I didn't deserve that pain. I deserve love, just not from her.
Today, I choose myself.
I wanted to tell you, but you weren't there.
These are the stories that I wish you heard. Streaming weekly episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
If you like this episode, please rate the podcast 5 stars, 6 and take it home. This podcast is a member of Bunk Collective.
Welcome to your unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast. This is the THEMTG Show Podcast. Welcome to your unfiltered Tagalog Wrestling Podcast. And this is the MTG Show Podcast, a wrestling podcast. Ito na naman tayo eh. So, don't worry, hindi nyo ako maririnig gano'ng mag-swear ngayon kasi hindi naman tayo gano'ng masipag sa mundo, no? We're not on, we don't know what's going on right now aside sa politics, aside sa WrestleMania Backlash that we're going to discuss in a bit. And of course, yung iba pang naging ganap sa scene this week on the podcast, we're going to discuss that in a bit. So before we start this podcast, literally, okay, so congratulations sa mga lahat lahat from president to konsehal ng bayan. I hope na you all are going to do what you promised except sa mga unity nyo. Sana hindi lang unity yung gawin nyo, ang gawin nyo change. Tingin natin pwede nating magamit sa bayan. Hindi yung puro kayo unity o puro kayo barangay ganyan. Mga SK. Okay, so for this week's episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about WrestleMania Backlash. Of course, we're going to do a podcast review of it. And then we're going to talk about the rest of the shows na nangyari this week. We're going to talk about the all-woman NXT, the Dynamite na nangyari earlier, and of course our first segment ng debunked, we're going to talk about Jinder Mahal's WWE Championship reign on this very episode of the podcast. So okay, before we continue, we're going to mention the comeback of MWF Aksyonovela. So the main event of episode 1 of Aksyonovela is Sane versus Crystal in a Manila Wrestling Rules or Manila Rules. So that's best of 5 if di nyo naintindihan yung Manila Rules. So Manila Rules is their own style wrestling, so more on grappling yung ginagawa in Manila Rules. May explanation sila in every episode. Di ko na natanda kung anong buong episode, anong buong rules sa Manila Rules. So if umawa ka sa ropes, it's considered 1 point. Pinfall, sa successful pinfall, 1 point. Then knockout or submission, that's considered a end of the match up. So more on sila grappling and submission. Ganyan. That's why I love their approach sa MWF sa Manila Rules. Okay. So, main event, we saw the comeback as well of PWOGs in the Philippine wrestling scene after almost 2 years and the pandemic. So, syempre nag-appear din sa Sarap Pro Wrestling sa Indo yung PWOGs. Pero syempre iba pa din yung PWOGs here in the Philippines. So that's why sobrang ibang-iba sa atin yung episode na yun ng MWF Aksyonovela. So, if you want to support the Manila Wrestling Federation, of course, you can support them by watching their stuff on Gank. So, Gank, meron silang Gank account. Iwan na rin natin sa description. Gank.com/Manila Wrestling Federation or Manila. Tama ba? So, gank.ph/Manila Wrestling Federation. So, yeah. I love the debut of Crystal and the comeback of Robin Sane. Yun lang. Okay. Let's go to WrestleMania Backlash. So, medyo late ko nang pinanood ng WrestleMania Backlash. That's a take. Wait lang. Ayun. So, medyo late natin napanood yung WrestleMania Backlash kasi we need to do our best na makaboto tayo agad. So, yun. That's why late ako nanood ng WrestleMania. So, ano pa ba kailangan natin pag-usapan ng this pay-per-view? So, andito yung biggest title change of the night. So, Ronda Rousey defeated Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's Championship in an I Quit match. We're going to talk about later. So, let's start with the main event. Roman Reigns, the Usos, defeated Drew McIntyre and RK Bro. So, that's a action-packed main event for WrestleMania Backlash. Kaya lang the question in my mind on this one is of course, what's next? So, medyo negative kasi sa akin na mag-unify sila late. Hell in a Cell. Okay. Medyo ang weird na after of the announcement ng balita na Roman Reigns will leave the company for a while. He will take a break. So malamang sa malamang we're going to get this unification thing. And that's the thing that I don't like. Sobrang on paper, it's just disappointing. Pero ang bright side naman nitong possible pag-alis ni Roman is mas makikita natin yung IC at US title on pay-per-view. So that's a plus. Sana lang madepende on pay-per-view yung title ni Theory. At saka yung IC title. Sino nga ba ang IC champion? To be honest, hindi ko na alam kung sino ang IC champion. Si Ricochet, yeah. So, I hope na maayos yung magiging booking nila on Roman habang wala siya and yung pagbalik niya SummerSlam season. I wish ganun yung magiging setup, tama ba? But yeah, Roman Reigns is set to take a vacation, 10 weeks of vacation. I don't know what's going to happen next on that. So maybe mag-update na lang tayo on the next episodes maybe sa mga mangyayari sa ganap ni Roman Reigns on his vacation. Also, we're going to talk about the possible unification of the SmackDown and Raw Tag Team titles. So, the only thing that I can say is, unification naman? Di ako talaga fan ng unification. I'm not a fan of the Brock Roman unification. Definitely hindi ako magiging fan of this one. Ilang beses ko na yan sinabi here in the program and hindi magbabago yung point of view ko for that. Okay? Then let's move on to the SmackDown Women's title. So it's Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. So Ronda Rousey defeated Charlotte one-on-one in an I Quit match for the SmackDown Women's title. Personal note, I love the matchup. Kaya lang, medyo, ang dating lang sa akin ito, overdue na. Kasi, ayun, may balita na nga na Charlotte will take a vacation para sa kasal nila with Andrade. And make sense kung ganito yung magiging write-off niya. But, sobrang overdue nito para sa akin. And, yun, medyo, the match is so good, okay? Sobrang ganda ng laban. If you want to watch it, watch it. And I think that's a really good touch for WrestleMania Backlash. Kaya lang sabihin ko talaga sobrang overdue na nung kanilang match for this pay-per-view. It's too much. Parang I can say na I hate the fact na ganito pa yung booking nila, parang potato booking kay Charlotte and Ronda. But I'm glad But I'm glad as well din na Charlotte will leave the company at least 9 ilang weeks yon na mawawala siya sa scene and sa title picture. So, it's a plus maybe for some people who doesn't like Charlotte. And I love the match up between Ronda and Charlotte as well. Alam na yung ibang spots on this match. Ayoko nang ikabisaduhin lahat ng happenings, but definitely this is a must watch for WrestleMania Backlash. So yeah. Then next, so we got a new member of Judgement Day. So let's talk about the match first between Edge and AJ Styles. The match itself is kinda slow. Expected na yun. Di siya bago. Pero I'm glad that Edge won para lang mag-continue yung story between Edge and the rest of the members ng Judgment Day. And we got the introduction of the new member in Rhea Ripley. So she revealed herself in a mask and then nag-reveal siya later on as Rhea Ripley. And she is now part of the stable with Edge. So that's a plus. Okay. Sobrang sa mga spoiler kasi sobrang expected dati. Pero still, I'm glad they pulled the trigger on that heel turn. Kasi hindi naman talaga pantag team si Rhea. So, it's a plus for me. Kaya lang sobrang expected na siya kasi wala na. Expected na to eh. Naririnig natin to before. And nabalita natin siya before that Rhea Ripley will join Judgment Day. So, it's true. Totoo naman. Aside from that, I'm satisfied with their role, especially AJ and Edge, na ganyan yung ginagawa nila at this point. So, it's a +1 for me. Okay. Then, let's talk about the match of the night. Definitely one of my favorite matchups of the night from WrestleMania Backlash. It's Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes in a one-on-one rematch from WrestleMania. So, basically, it's fine. It's fine. Kaya lang safe to say na sobrang bitin ako kasi hindi ko mas na-enjoy ko to over WrestleMania, of course. Pero the approach of this one sobrang different kumpara sa WrestleMania matchup nila with each other. Sobrang different. Sobrang laki ng difference between between the match on that day and this match on this present. Sobrang laki ng difference and I kinda hate that. Pero regardless, we're going to get another one. And ayun. I'm glad that we're going to get another WrestleMania or another match between Cody and Seth. So let's look forward for that one. And finally, combine ko na yung ratings ko, Omos and Lashley, saka Corbin and Madcap Moss. Let's talk about Lashley match first. Ito, okay lang. Sobrang maganda yung developments. Sinement lang nila yung turn ni MVP. Solid cement of his heel turn on Lashley. It's a good touch. Pero parang andun lang. Parang slow pa yung build nila with MVP and Omos. And I'm glad that Omos get the win on their match at WrestleMania Backlash. And finally, the last match of WrestleMania that we need to point out is Happy Corbin versus Madcap Moss. Madcap winning that match is okay. Pero sana slow build to kasi malamang slow build to. And maybe magkakaroon tayo ng Madcap sa Money in the Bank, I guess. And at least that's a push. Natutuwa ko on that. Basta hindi Happy Corbin, yung mapapasama sa ating WrestleMania or Money in the Bank ladder match on this year's Money in the Bank on July. Okay. So before we reveal our scores for WrestleMania Backlash, verdict muna for this pay-per-view. So, not a bad pay-per-view, kaya lang hindi talaga tayo nakapag-focus on this one because of the elections. So, kinda hindi na siya na priority. And, come on. If you're going to ask me what's my top 3 matches of the pay-per-view, it's gonna be 1, the Cody Rollins match. Number 2, the SmackDown Women's Title I Quit match. And number 3, the 6-man tag main event. But all of the 3 matches is great on their own. Pero I think mas maganda yan napanood mo ng TV, napanood mo ng live. And yan, I think that's a really good touch on the pay-per-view. Okay, so WrestleMania Backlash ratings. Let's talk about the Cody Rollins 5/5. The Omos Lashley is 3. Edge Styles SmackDown Women's Title is 4/5. The Corbin Madcap is 2. The 6 tag is 4. Let me know your reactions and thoughts about WrestleMania Backlash and more for this week's podcast. Let me know on social media kung ano yung masasabi nyo and yung mga takes nyo on WrestleMania Backlash. So before we go to our first commercial break, we want to invite you in behalf of Bank Collective. So may event ang Bank Collective on May 14. So alive and kicking at the Stockroom Warehouse in Bake Studios, Sakal Street, Makati City on May 14th. That's on Saturday at 4 p.m. Meron itong registration fee na 500 pesos. You can DM Bank Collective's social media. So may access na yon sa bazaar. Merong program, of course. Merong freebies. And doon sa buong program. So of course, kasama natin sa Bank Collective event na ito is our Bank Collective Spotify exclusive podcasts. Huwag Kang Lilingon and Cripsilog, Astrology, The Stories I Wish You Hear, The Shippers, Kinka Podcast, The Kimbap Show, The Kingdom Podcast, and Wine and Titas. So if you want to know about the event on Saturday, you can check out the Bank Collective social media platform. So before we go to our first commercial break, let's jot down our segments pa. So when we come back, we're going to talk about Raw and SmackDown before WrestleMania and after WrestleMania. And of course, NXT. Okay? NXT. So we're going to take our commercial break and let's check our bunkmates here on Bank Collective.
Bakit mabaho ang utot?
Lulubog na ba ang Pilipinas?
Mahihain ba ang makaya? Bakit bumabagyo sa Pinas?
Mga katanungang bumabagabag sa kaisipan ni Juan. Halika, bigyan natin ng mga scientificong kasagutan. Ito ang inyong gurong lakan mula sa Bulacan, Sir Red. At ito ang Hainay na Tagham the Podcast Year 2. Pakinggan sa lahat ng major podcast streaming platforms. Tara, matuto, magsaliksik, magkaroon ng dagdag na kaalaman. Haynayan, magpakailanman.
Picture this. Two guys talking about true crime,
weird mysteries,
horror stories,
but the conversation is light,
mostly funny,
and sometimes naughty.
This is Scriptsalog,
a Spotify exclusive.
I'm Gideon.
And I'm Glenn, and we're serving huge portions of horror and true crime twice a week.
We'll make sure your cravings are satisfied.
And you'll be begging for more.
Char.
Check us out.
This is Scriptsalog, available exclusively on Spotify.
Okay, so welcome back to the show. Let's talk about Raw and SmackDown Fallout. But before that, please support the podcast on Lazada. So malapit syempre. Merong sunod-sunod na Lazada sales. If you want to support the podcast on Lazada, please use my link on the description below or padlink.co/6gs. Okay, continue. Fuck. Let's do this. So, let's talk about Raw. Raw after WrestleMania Backlash. Medyo impressed ako on WrestleMania Backlash. I trust WWE naman when it comes to bookings. Kaya lang medyo nagdududa ako on some segments na sobrang unnecessary. I know parang sinisiksik lang nila for the whole 3 hours. So let's start with RK Bro and Street Profits for the Raw Tag Team titles. So RK Bro wants to unify the tag titles with the Usos. Wala pa tayong sagot, so probably makakuha tayo ng sagot on this week's episode of SmackDown. Then yun, nilabanan nga nila Street Profits and we got a really good match to kick off Monday Night Raw. So it's impressive. Sobrang impressive na laban between RK Bro and Street Profits. And not bad. Not a bad way to start this week's Raw. I love the matchup though. So next, we got the Rhea Ripley explanation on why she joined Judgement Day. And she said na sobrang umay na siya sa tao. So that's the major reason. And then she called out Liv Morgan. And yun, nagkaroon sila ng match later on. And Rhea Ripley defeated Liv on a submission. Para talagang umiiwas na sa doon sa pin na kala mo tinitira ka. That's a weird pinfall combination, to be honest. Okay. Then we got Damian Priest versus Finn Balor in a match. Okay. It's gonna add for me. Sobrang inantok ko dito. Sorry guys. Not bad. But sobrang naantok ako nung pinanood ko to. Okay. Then, so we got Austin Theory and Cody Rhodes for the United States Championship. I'm impressed on this one kasi definitely Theory and Cody did a really good matchup. Kaya lang natapos by disqualification after Seth Rollins ruined everything na nangyari. On this matchup, they did a really good matchup. And the end is Cody was beat up by Seth Rollins and I kinda hate that. I'm fine with the clean win, but it makes sense to keep both of them as well. No? Then, pag-usapan natin. So, there's a comeback on this week's episode of Raw. So, we got the returning Alexa Bliss when she fought Sonya Deville in a one-on-one match. Before the match started, Adam Pearce announced that Sonya Deville is no longer WWE official and from now on she will compete I'm glad na Sonya is no longer WWE official. But yeah, I love the announcement na din kasi we want we want to throw her out. That's the way they did that sequence. Then ayun, so Alexa Bliss defeated Sonya in a really quick matchup, and I'm really glad that she's back on Raw. Sana lang i-ditch nila talaga yung character ni Lily on this one. So that's a plus one na for sure. Then let's talk about the final segment of this week's Raw. So we get Becky Lynch attacking both Asuka and Bianca Belair during the number one contenders match for the Raw Women's title. So that's the term, parang contenders match. If Asuka defeated Bianca, we're going to get a one-on-one on pay-per-view or maybe Raw. Sobrang ano na like what I said, sobrang unnecessary nito. 10 minutes na lang. Wala nang 10 minutes. May commercial pa doon. Tapos ganito yung mangyayari. Expect bull crap. But I'm glad na it ended in that way. May-edge sa ganung paraan. Kasi obvious naman na last call na yan. And wala na, last 5 minutes na nga lang yun. Nag-entrance pa nga lang 10:55 na nung patapos na yung entrance. So it makes sense na in ganun, that way. Na napagsiksik nila yon talaga in 3 hours, no? Okay. So then on SmackDown, obviously, we're not going to talk about everything kasi yun yung build ng WrestleMania Backlash na. And we're done with WrestleMania Backlash. Although I love the tables match between New Day and Sheamus and Rich Holland. And finally, Lacey Evans is back on WWE TV for kaso according to Fightful, so Lacey Evans moved to Raw as a heel. I don't know that's a good decision or not. Hindi ko alam, that's I don't know if that thing is a good decision or not kasi parang I'm just disappointed to the fact na Lacey Evans made a return, sobrang over niya sa crowd, tapos you're going to turn heel agad. That's BS. Okay. Ayun, let's go to NXT. Let's start with the good ones. So, I love the women's tag title match between Roxanne Perez and Wendy Chu versus Toxic Attraction. I'm fine with the decision, but it's kinda cringe on how they build up the possible one-on-one between Mandy Rose and Wendy Chu. Maayos yung build nila, pero sobrang, aside sa sobrang libog ng mga talents na, sobrang I'm not that impressed on the bookings ng 2.0. Sobrang sobrang dark. Sobrang dark ng NXT 2.0. Wait lang. So we got the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament na nag-start na din on this week's episode of NXT. So we got Nikita Lyons, Ariana Grace, Roxanne Perez, sino nga to? Kiana James, Lash Legend, Tatum Paxley, Fallon Henley, and Sloane Jacobs. So we got the NXT Breakout Tournament and women's side. So konting recap lang. So Nikita Lyons defeated Ariana Grace. Ariana Grace is the daughter of Santino Marella. Then Fallon Henley defeated Sloane Jacobs in a one-on-one match as well for the Dusty Cup. Or Dusty Cup for the women's breakout tournament. So it's really expecting, and maybe we're going to get Roxanne Perez and Nikita Lyons in the finals. Pagka ang mangyayari dito ay no-contest, din ako magugulat. Ako, that's my take. Din ako magugulat on that one. But yeah, yun. If again siya no-contest, din ako magugulat eh. Kasi ganun ang toxic attraction dito eh. Baka mag-interfere na lang ang toxic on this one. But yeah. Then finally, the main event of this week's NXT, it's Natalia versus Cora Jade. Definitely one of my favorite Natalia matches in NXT or ever in WWE. Sobrang konti kasi ng best matches niya, Natalia. So it's kind of understandable. So I love her match on this one. And sobrang ganda ng way nila to end this match. Protected pa din si Cora kahit paano on this. So that's why I love how they booked this main event. Sobrang genius lang for me noong pagbubook nila ng ending ng NXT ng match na to, basically on the main event. And parang ano yung solid kasi eh. From start to finish, wala akong nasabing negative from this match. If I'm going to rate this match, I'm going to rate it, I think, 4. 4 is enough. Not definitely 5. Hindi kasi ako not a fan of NXT TV matches tas ganito. Sobrang daming commercials na sobrang turn off ako when it comes to that product. Okay? So, again, we're going to remind you guys before to go on our second commercial break. So, Bunk Collective will have a live meet and greet and conference event on May 14, live and kicking at the Stockroom Warehouse in Bake Studios, Yakala Street, Makati City, this Saturday, May 14 at 4 p.m. onwards. So, may registration fee of 500 pesos. May mga access na yan sa mga staff, sa bazaar. Meron yan live program, kasama na yung previews na ipapamigay. Nakakalat na yan sa lahat ng platforms ng bank. And of course, yung creative conference. And mga kasama niyo pa, mga host ng mga susunod na mga podcast na to. So we get the Spotify exclusive shows. Huwag kang lilingon, Encrypt Silog, Astrology, The Stories I Wish You Hear, The Shippers, King Ka Podcast, The Kimbap Show, The Kingdom Podcast, and The Wine and Titas. All of the hosts of these shows will be there, and I hope na magsama-sama kayo on May 14 this Saturday doon po sa Makati. And yun, so that's our second commercial break, and when we come back, we are going to do our Dynamite review and syempre yung ating debunked segment on this week's episode of the podcast. So yeah, for now, let's check our other bunkmates here on Bunk Collective.
Get in, loser. We're going shopping.
I can't. I'm sick.
Yung tataa.
Boo, you whore. Di-lockdown pa rin.
Huh? 2021 na.
So, anong gagawin natin?
Di, magstay na lang sa house at makinig sa Astrology, the podcast. With new episodes every Tuesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
Hey everyone, this is Mo Twister, and you're listening to the Kingdom Podcast with the voice, DJ Yuki.
That was the OG, Mo Twister, promoting this podcast. If you like Korean pop culture, or know someone who does, then get into it, and visit our Facebook, Twitter and Instagram pages at the Kingdom Pod PH.
We're proud to tell you that this is one of the premier shows to go to for your weekly dose of K-pop. So drop everything and listen to the Kingdom Podcast. Available in all your podcast streaming platforms.
Join us!
Hello. So we're back on the podcast. So let's continue with our regular programming here on the show. First thing, Adam Cole versus Dax Harwood. I think That's a really good matchup to start the Owen Cup quarterfinal matchups. Excuse me. In my opinion, I love how they started this tournament. Parang consider nila yung first round matches, yung mga matches before parang qualifying matches. Sa paningin ko parang first round din eh. No? And then we're getting this kind of matchups na mas mabibigat na yung stakes. So I love the Dax and Adam Cole matchup for the first round of the Owen Cup Foundation tournament. And I'm kinda impressed on this. The ending is very impressive. Ewan ko ang ad sa iba, pero sa akin ang angas nung ending nila. Doon sa match na yun between Adam Cole and Dax Harwood. Then, okay. Then we got the... Okay. So, not a fan of the Punk turn here kasi Long Island yung venue. So, di na magugulat on this one. Parang may long-term something na with when it comes to CM Punk doing stupid things in Long Island. But still, it's impressive. Come on, it's impressive, right? Okay, so we got Hook and Danhausen. Finally, they decided to team up and ayun. I'm impressed on this team up. Parang Rock and Mick Foley type of unification or being tag team, ganyan. And at the same time, sobrang impressed ako on how they build up this feud for very long time, I guess. And I'm kind of impressed on that, okay? Then, so we got the MJF Wardlow thing. let's start debunking this, okay? So, I love how they started this segment with the dark side of the ring spoof. I love that shit. If you want to watch it, watch it. Come on. It's impressive. Parang I love how they use the dark side of the ring thing on this match or this very segment. Then, yung mga stakes, it's very MJF. So, MJF has to lash Wardlow with a belt 10 times on his back. Same noong ginawa kay Cody before. Then, tapos, if he successed on that belting, Wardlow will fight Sean Spears in a steel cage match with MJF is acting like the special gatekeeper for this matchup. And if he defeated Sean Spears, pwede na siya makakalaban sa Double or Nothing versus MJF. The final stake on this one is if MJF defeated Wardlow, hindi na pwede mag-sign si Wardlow ng contract with AEW. So, yeah, ito lang yung difference between the Cody and Wardlow matchup for Double or Nothing or doon sa naging condition thing to with MJF. It's kinda overused, but that's the approach of MJF eh. So yeah, not a fan of this. Then, so may iba pang matchups on this week's episode of Dynamite. So yung qualifications pa for the Owen Cup, I love the Tony Storm and Jimmy Heater match. And of course, the main event, sobrang superb nun, Darby Allin and Jeff Hardy. I love na they had changed the stipulation of this matchup sa Plus. And finally, the segment between Jericho Appreciation Society, Blackpool Combat Club, and the team of Eddie Kingston and Santana and Ortiz. That's a good shit. I wish there's blood and guts sa double or nothing, or maybe 5-on-5 brawl, or maybe a street fight. Malabo kasi blood and guts. I wish there's a blood and guts actually. Pero mukhang malabo. Maybe after double or nothing, ano? Maybe before double. Maybe after double or nothing. But yeah, yun. So basically yun lang ang ating AEW Dynamite review. So yun lang. Let's start our final segment of this week's episode of the podcast. So ito dapat next week dapat next week to gagawin sa ating anniversary app. So let's talk about welcome to Debunk. So on this very segment, we're going to debunk or remembering some segments or moments nangyari in WWE. So or any companies syempre na naabutan nyo, or syempre ito din yung segment na sa tingin ko we have to leave questions sa mga listeners natin here on the podcast. So that's why we call it debunk. Magde-debunk tayo at the same time bibigay din tayo ng questions na parang di nila narinig before, no? And so let's start. So on this very first episode of Debunk, the very first segment na Debunked, let's talk about Jinder Mahala's former WWE title reign. For me naman, sobrang impressive na to. I don't know why people hating the WWE title run of Jinder Mahal. It's impressive. Come on. It's experimentally impressive. I don't know why people are hating it. Meron pa ako nababasa right now sa Twitter na Jinder Mahal's WWE title reign in 2017 is maybe one of the worst reigns or one of the worst ideas WWE made ever. It's kinda odd opinion, pero I don't know why people saying that. I'm not a fan. Hindi ako fan ng ganitong mga transitional champions. Pero hindi ako fan kung paano nila binook itong reign ni Jinder as WWE champion. It's impressive, na we can have a new Great Khali in AEW or WWE. Pero hindi niya matatalo si Khali. I love the approach here na they want the market, ng Indian market. They want to capture the Indian market, but hindi sila nagtagumpay dito. Parang it's a false or a failed experiment on this Great Khali thing with Jinder. So that's why. Maikli lang to. Don't worry. Maybe in the next few episodes of this, maybe gagawa tayo ng debunked specials. So the question here is, are you satisfied with the title reign? Kasi ako, it's fine. The decision, it's kinda weird, but I'm satisfied at the same time. I don't know why all still hating the Jinder title run kahit halos isang dekada na yun na nangyari. I don't know what's the point of that. I don't know why people still hating it. Still hating the title reign. Come on. Until this day, I don't know why. I don't know what's the point of that. Okay. So, I'm going to leave you with a note about this debunk segment. Maybe, ngayon nyo na maririnig. I'm a fan of Jinder. But, it's kind of bland. And parang sobrang experimental talaga ng Tyro Rain na yun. I don't know if people is still loving the Tyro. But I love the Tyro Rain, let's face it. I love the feud. I love the matches between Orton and Jinder, Nakamura and Jinder, the Cena and Corbin versus Jinder. Definitely a good touch on the Tyro Rain. Diba? Okay, so yun lang muna for debunked. Medyo hindi pa planado kung ano yung mangyayari dito. But definitely, the next few episodes pa, mas may explain natin mabuti kung ano yung magiging scenarios on this type of show. So, babalik yung debunked maybe after ng double R natin. Okay? So, that's it for this week's episode. Before we go to our extra, let's talk about our picks of the week. So, the picks was posted on Tuesday, yes, kasi medyo marami tayong problema on Tuesday. Last Monday, no? Dapat Monday pa yun. So, Man of the Week or Superstar of the Week is Cameron Grimes. The Woman of the Week is Ronda Rousey. And the Match of the Week, it's the Triple Threat match. Cameron Grimes, Solo Sikoa, and Carmelo Hayes for the North American Championship from Spring Break-In on last week's NXT. So that's pretty much it for this week's episode of the podcast. Follow the podcast on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and on TikTok at the MTGSHOWPOD. You can check out all of the content, all of the stuff on my link TR. That's linktr.ee/the MTGSHOWPodcast. You can watch or you can listen to our podcast every Friday on your favorite podcast platforms and on the podcast app every Fridays. And as always, every Fridays on your favorite podcast platforms. Then you can check out all the podcasts of Bunk Collective on all the social media platforms and visit our website, thebunkph.com. Ayun, so patreon.com/themtgshowpod and yung ating personal social media platforms at AG Pinera on Twitter and Instagram. Again, we're going to plug the upcoming event of Bunk Collective, Alive and Kicking at the Stockroom Warehouse, Yakal, tama ba? Bake Studios, Yakal Street in Makati City on May 14th. That's this Saturday at 4 p.m. onwards. With the registration fee of 500 pesos, you can DM the Bunk Collective social media platforms for that. And you can check out more details on the Bunk's Facebook and Twitter IG platforms of the Bunk. So, there's all access to the bazaar, of course, the program, the previews, and the creative conference for the event. Makakasama natin here on the conference is our Spotify exclusive podcast. Wag kang lilingon. Cripsilog, Astrology, The Stories I Wish You Hear, The Shippers, King Cup Podcast, The Kimbap Show, The Kingdom Podcast, and Wine and Tita. So, see ya on the 14th of May doon sa Bake Studios in Yakal Street, Makati City on May 14th. So, that's it for our episode of the podcast, episode 103 of the MA Show podcast. Stay safe, stay raso, and see you later. And see you on the next episode of the podcast. Peace. We're out.
Hey everyone, my name is Greg.
I'm McCoy.
And I'm D. We're from
Chat. We're three Filipino-American gay guys discussing topics about culture, LGBTQ identity, politics, even love.
Or the lack thereof.
Here we go again.
Okay. We also cover family dramas and everything your tita baby and uncle boy don't want to talk about.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.